Ginger Prime stands with a rallying call. Pixelit faith standing strong through it all. The flame rate may falter, but hearts won't fall. Chrono rewrites what you thought you knew at all. Late to the game, but his wisdom lands clean. Skill checks are off, that's the price of a dream. Gaming kinda brings the chaos and thrill, dropping rare loot with unshakable will. Forte holds the line, grace under the blade, faith like a fortress that never will fade. Scrag lights the fire with a storm in his breath. $80 flat for unfinished quests. Joy-Con still drifting, my patience long gone. But I'll queue up at midnight, you know I'll play on. Pull up a chair, the battle's begun. Legends are forged in the light of the sun. One life, no saves, play it bold, take the lead. At the gaming roundtable where the fearless plant every seed. We shine bright in tree, ride no please. Rise to the fire, no checkpoint in sight. One heart, one strike through the endless night.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gaming Roundtable. We have assembled, and today we're going to be having a heavily focused Final Fantasy discussion. We've got Cole back on the podcast. We got Mugen back on the podcast. And we've got Scrag back here to talk about both Final Fantasy 14, what can be done. There's some drama, some frustration going on around the community. There's a discussion around whether this is pretty standard for maybe a Final Fantasy 14 content cycle, or is this something to herald the end of the game? But also Square Enix this week tweeting out that they're going to be focusing in on also bringing back some more turn-based JRPGs, maybe going back to their bread and butter, maybe investing in Final Fantasy and doing something a little bit different, especially with the praise that they gave to Expedition 33, which, as anybody who's played that game knows, heavily inspired by Final Fantasy. But let's go around the horn. Let's let the guys introduce themselves. If you guys enjoy the content, like and go and sub to them as well, because their links are all in the description. We want to make sure that you guys are all well plugged. Well, let's start with Mugen. Welcome back, dude. How you been?
I've been really good, man. I appreciate you having me on this platform once again. It's an honor and everything. But yes, my name is Mugen Lord. I'm a gaming YouTuber, commentator. I pretty much chime in and give my opinions on what's going on within the gaming industry itself. Every once in a while, I'll speak on some culture war issues that goes on within the gaming industry. But other than that, I just talk about video games and why I enjoy video games. And I'm also a comic book creator, writer, author as well. Venus Orion Comics. I just launched my campaign, my first campaign that was successful. And now I'm working on the second issue of my comic book series, Varion Keller's Vampire Killers. So yeah, that's about it.
Dude, freaking crushing life, dude. Cole, let's toss over to you, man. You made a video this week, and also like several people actually sent me your reply to the Reddit post of what we're going to kind of break down and talk about today. But how are you doing, dude? What's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, and I'm happy to be on the podcast again. It's been quite a long time, and it's really good to be back. And yeah, hoping that we can talk a lot about Final Fantasy 14, because in spite of there being interesting content drought that one could argue, we have no lack of controversy, especially with some of the live letter statements about cost. Yeah. So a lot of cover here. So pretty excited.
All right. And Scrag, dude, you cracked me up with your summary of the basically the problem. And I'm gonna toss to you to let you share that if you feel so inclined, because I felt like it hit the nail on the head, but then you finished your little summary with kind of the perfect line. You want to break it down?
Sure. So here's my summary for the current state of the game. Gear bad, raid bad, story bad. People blaming content creators blaming casuals, devs blaming costs, but also this is their loss leader, 14, that is. Yoshi P working on something else, and still no blitzball.
Yeah, still no Blitzball. That we summed it up. That's perfect. What's the how to fix Final Fantasy 14 Blitzball? But that's a long running meme at this point. And I was like, yeah, if it didn't come in Stormblood, then I was like, I can't. I don't know. I don't know how you go and fit that in. All right, let's break it down first and foremost with the news about the turn-based aspect, because that doesn't necessarily heavily relate to Final Fantasy 14, but I think there is some connective tissue here. Do you guys want to see a new turn-based mainline Final Fantasy game? And if so, like, is that what they should focus in on next, or is this something where, I don't know, I've floated the idea around, like, maybe you just separate Final Fantasy into two different brands. You have Final Fantasy, the action RPGs, maybe you even start renumbering them, and then you have Final Fantasy, the turn-based, JRPGs that people have expected, and that maybe continues the numbering. There's a lot of different ways they can go about it, but let's start with Mugen. What do you think? Because you're shaking your head.
Oh yeah. As far as the turn-based, I think the mainline Final Fantasy should return back to that, because I think we already had two different categories. We had spin-offs, Final Fantasies, and then we had the mainline. And I've always been saying this: when you see a number in front of Final Fantasy, that comes with a certain standard. And when you have spin-offs, you already know what to expect going into a spin-off Final Fantasy. You know this is a time where Square Enix goes in and they experiment with spin-offs, and I'm totally fine with that, because they are not supposed to, or traditionally don't follow after what the mainline Final Fantasy does. So you have a chance to go in and actually have fun with it and stuff. Like when it came to Strangers of Paradise, that was like their Dark Souls type of Final Fantasy game. It had its action adventure aspects to it and RPG elements. Then you got your Final Fantasy Tactics, which is also a spin-off side project and stuff. So you're able to have fun with the IP when you do those things. But when you talk about a numbered Final Fantasy, yes, there are certain standards, and most of the numbered Final Fantasies, they always had the ATB or turn-based type of mechanics, but each number always had a different spin or a different twist to it that's unique to that series and everything. And I was totally okay with that, totally fine with that. But if they wanted to go the action RPG route, then I love the hybrid that Final Fantasy VII Remake had introduced. I think that's the perfect path to go if they want to continue to go down the action RPG. But what they should do is make that the foundation, and then every entry they just take it and then add their own twist to it. I think 16, in my personal opinion, should have had adopted the Final Fantasy VII Remake mechanics, but add their own twist to it to make it unique for that entry and everything. And so now them going to turn-based, especially after seeing what Expedition 33 has done, that's like an evolution of the turn-based mechanics, something that Final Fantasy, if they stuck with it, probably would have had done that already or surpassed it already. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Cole, what do you think?
See, I'm kind of torn because, Clair Obscura Expedition 33, I played it and it was an absolute masterpiece from top to bottom. Everything about it was amazing. I'm putting it as the background in so many of my videos. I love it. But the thing is, I also do want to see them push innovation and try new things and see, hey, maybe if we try like this, maybe it'll really click with players rather than just action, which is what a lot of the newer games are doing. But I gotta admit, when it comes to my own experience playing the mainline Final Fantasy games, usually I think about 10, or I think about maybe 12. And I usually do think about turn-based games. I haven't really spent that much time on the more modern games, if I'm quite honest, like the remake. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask this to. I might be slightly biased. But I can say that I hope that whatever they do, that they continue to innovate, and hopefully they take into account that, hey, turn-based isn't dead, and Expedition 33 proved that.
Yeah, I think it did. And it's not just Expedition 33, but you look at the Game of the Year awards the last 3 years in a row, you have Metaphor. There's so many standout games that are turn-based. There's so many different things you can do. And I think it also helps to kind of address some of the frustration and feedback. Like if we looked at 14, for example, there are no elemental weaknesses, and we know why that's the case. And obviously, as you move into action, you lose a little bit of that. You can have 100 different spells, and maybe some have a special use case, like healing an undead would hurt them. We've lost that kind of, I think, magic, which a lot of us grew up on. But Scrag, I want to talk to you because You talked, Cole brought up the Final Fantasy 16. He brought up the Expedition 33. Where do you fall, especially with the future of Final Fantasy as a brand?
Well, I'll say that me personally, I've been playing a lot of Atlas games since Final Fantasy 13. So I think that says a
Did you
little
ever
bit
play
about what
like
I feel.
Lost Odyssey, perchance?
Yeah, I played that forever ago.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. But I mean, turn-based is like still fun in my opinion. It does put me to sleep a little bit, but that's just because I'm old. And I think that them going back to that is going to be probably a really safe move, good move even, because like I said, Atlas games have been like my refuge when it comes to getting that turn-based experience.
I'm going to go out and maybe put out something a little bit controversial, especially when it comes down to this, because I've stated multiple times, I'm so glad I played 16 before I played 7R, because I felt 7R has a much better battle system, and it felt really like complete, where 16, I had a fun time, but I stated, especially at its normal difficulty that it puts you in right at the gate, I never felt like I was ever needing to make a decision. I didn't ever go and grind to be able to save up money so I can afford an upgrade or a piece of gear to make some fight that is giving me trouble to be able to overcome it. I just felt like I was able to really mash, and the combat again was fun. What I feel actually has been lacking isn't necessarily the combat. They could do action, they could do turn-based. I'm all for whatever they want as long as it's their vision. I feel like when you look at what Yoshi P and his team have created, we're going to put Final Fantasy Tactics as an exception because that's a remake. But when you look at 14 and you look at 16 versus something like Final Fantasy 7R and Expedition 33, there's RPG in Expedition 33 and there's a RPG in Final Fantasy 7R. Gear doesn't matter in 14 or 16. Like you could probably beat it without having to even worry about any of that. The gear just kind of happens naturally as you progress the story. They have prioritized, I think, story so much so to the disadvantage of everybody else. And I think that can easily be solved with difficulty. If you don't want to grind, if you don't want to do these various things, they've already solved that problem. They've solved that problem with Bravery Default. They've solved that problem with the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. You can boost up the amount of money and the experience. You can really help streamline those experiences for those who want that story narrative. But you should open it up to other players, especially veterans, to really kind of dive in and say, hey, yeah, like that's the thing that I immediately noticed and fell in love with the Souls games as I stepped into Elden Ring, as I've been playing No Rest for the Wicked. Like my choice, like every time I have to make a choice, I get excited because it feels like I'm presented with 3 amazing options. And what do I want to pick? And so I really have been drawn more into those style of games with 7R, with classic Final Fantasy, with Souls likes, because I feel like they actually represent what we want. And I've seen, I think especially with 14 and with 16, it seems like it's trying to be so mainstream and appeal to so many people that it doesn't have that purpose driven kind of gameplay loop. Because I've stated this multiple times. Let's talk about Final Fantasy 14 as a kind of a direct response to this specifically. I talked about this multiple times. The core design decision around Final Fantasy 14 is that you can step away from the game and you can come back and you're not going to be at this massive disadvantage to other players. So whether you take a month off or you take years off, you can come in, you can leave, and you can come back, and you are going to be okay. And there's a real advantage to that, because essentially, if you felt like, oh, I need to go grind 1,000 hours in this game just so I can get back into where I can do these various things what the community is doing, that acts as a disadvantage. However, I feel like it's shifted to there's no real purpose, right? Like if I log in and I do the thing and then you just keep doing the thing, it leads to, I think, a much faster turnaround with burnout. And thus, when you look at the game right now as it exists, generally speaking, new players, they're having a great experience. They don't understand any of the frustration or drama around the game. It's the veteran players that have, like, once you cross over a certain threshold of hours and you're like, or you played multiple expansions, you're like, oh, this is just the same thing, just in a different skybox. And I want to go to Cole, because Cole, you brought up and specifically, especially when it related to cost. And I know you and I were talking this week specifically because the cost drama behind all of this really flew in the face of the Square Enix will spare no expense with Final Fantasy 14, which was what Yoshi P said at Endwalker. But here we are, like 2 years later from maybe that statement, 3 years from that statement, and all of a sudden cost is the limiting factor. The player population we've known has been dropping dramatically. Now people are seeing, and you kind of having to face that reality that what people were saying last year was true. It still maintains to be true this year. But I want you to kind of weigh in with your thoughts.
Yeah. So first thing, I love Final Fantasy 14. I love the devs. Please don't kill me. Always need to have that disclaimer.
What was that Xeno thing where he's like, like it's like the Final Fantasy 14 content creators have had this like, all right, I'm gonna say something, but I'm gonna preface it with this like statement to protect yourself from fire and brimstone. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, you do, because they're gonna just assume that you're just hating on it, and so before I explicitly even get into cost, it's just like you compared Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 14 with how linear things were, and that's not the first time that I've heard about things being more linear. And at this point, it feels like a really intentional design decision that even impacts things such as dungeons, and that in and of itself really hurts the diversity of gameplay that we can have, such as if you go to World of Warcraft with Mythic Plus system, you can do a whole lot of different dungeon skips and stuff along those lines. And so I think that it's that in and of itself has been a very intentional design decision. I think that you can even see that streamlining down to even Occult Crescent, where you look at the Phantom Jobs and then you see, hey, you get a certain prepackaged bundle of skills and potentially passives. Whereas if we even go back last expansion to Boja, we could see, hey, you can pick your different lost essences and lost actions and you combine things together. And so there's definitely this like streamlining, linearization, or whatever word I want to use. Things just feel more safe, more prepackaged. And so like even before it gets to cost, I think that there's some fundamental design things that are absolutely pinning the game down. Now, do I think the raid design for Dawn Trail raids is amazing? Absolutely. Like for those who aren't familiar, there's a fight called M6 Savage, and it has an ads phase, and it's brilliantly designed. So I think in that area they are experimenting. I think that's just delightful. But when it comes to cost, if I'm super honest, last year I went to the media tour and it was a beautiful event. And I'm not just sugarcoating it or just saying it to say it. It was truly beautiful. The venue, everything. I have so many things to say that were great about it. But one thing that really stood out to me was they said 7.0 is going to be the rewards and content difficulty revamp. And so when I was sitting there, I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to see potentially different gearing pathways. As Scrag said earlier, gearing's definitely a sore spot for a lot of people, even if you talk to different content creators. Like I think that it was Xenos' Vex, he said in a recent video, he doesn't even have all 4 tank weapons, and he's been re-clearing since week 1. It's just like eight weeks of clears for just one hard pity weapon. It kind of sucks. But my point, reeling it back, at the media tour, it was very clear this is supposed to be content difficulty and rewards revamp, and I'm kind of in the position where I'm, with no disrespect intended, where is it? And that sounds so malicious, but I swear it's not. It's just, okay, you said this, where's the delivery? And I feel like it's all coming back to that cost statement. And so it's kind of like fast forward from media tour last year to now, I'm hearing 2 different statements, or seeing 2 different statements about like amazing media tour to this, and now I'm hearing cost in a live letter, and it's shocking. It's shocking. And then I see it play in the gameplay, and like I said, where's the rewards revamp and content difficulty changes?
Didn't Yoshi P say that like 7.3 was when we're going to start to see more of that content start to roll into the game? Because I know they've pretty much been limited per month. The thing I got from the cost thing has made me question is like, well, he originally said 7.3 is when they're going to have an additional like 50% more, content added into the game, whether that's mounts and all, various different things. Everything kind of falls under the category of content. Is that still on schedule? Because I know it's 7.25. They're looking at 7.3, or was his cost comment to say, yeah, that stuff is not coming now?
I don't know if he meant it for just 7.3, but what I can tell you with 7.3, just talking to, and I suppose this would be anecdotally, I can't speak for the larger community, but hardcore players are pissed because they didn't get an ultimate raid that they expected. They were mad. Like like even just look at Arthur's reaction. That'll tell you everything you need to know. If you're talking about casual players, they're like, okay, well, deep dungeon, yay. And so it's kind of like, it feels like 7.3, if that is the case, and I don't remember him saying it, he very well could have. 7.3 is not serving anybody really, unless you're a deep dungeon player. But I mean, and they do exist, but I'm kind of feeling kind of like people might be like, oh, I can level alt jobs now in deep dungeon. Okay, well, why couldn't you do it in Occult Crescent when we used to be able to level in Boja? And so I don't know who's being served right now, if I'm honest. And again, no hate towards the devs. But...
Scrag, let's toss to you, man. Like your summary, I think, kind of highlights it. What do you think's going on?
Dude, I don't even know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know. Like, everyone's mad. I haven't played since level 92 because I got annoyed by the story. So, you know, I mean, I can just speak generally based on the updates that I have seen, and basically, it just kind of seems like it from an outside perspective now, it seems like everything's gotten stale, which is my personal point of view. It's stale. Palace of the Dead is still fun. But other than that, like, something needs to change. I could get into gearing on that. I could get into the topic of gearing.
Yeah, let's focus in on gearing for a little bit.
So, for example, Shadowbringers and Walker, it's extremely frustrating. You have to like split your gear sets because for some reason the gear that you get isn't good enough. Why can't they just make it better or different or whatever? I won't go too far into that because I will get really upset. But basically, getting the gear that in the gear system that we have now is so frustrating. Like, for example, you have a static, or you go into Party Finder. You have a static. You guys have been practicing for like 2-3 weeks. You're not like the best players in the world. You're not bad, but you're not like clearing ultimates or anything, right? You've been practicing. It's your 6th week of 2 hours on a Wednesday every week. You finally clear the boss. And guess what, though? That one guy in your party, he already went to Party Finder because he's greedy and ruined the chests for everyone else. And guess what? You don't get anything. You get a tome. So guess what? You're stuck for like, what is it? 8 tomes for one piece of gear at the beginning of an expansion, or is it 4? I can't remember.
Depends on the piece, but weapons 8.
Yeah. So you're stuck for 8 more weeks, probably, unless you get a drop, which if you're me, you won't. Don't worry. And then when you finally get that piece of gear, crunch the numbers, do the math, whatever. Okay, so that's like a 3% increase in DPS if you're a DPS. If you're a tank or a healer or whatever, like, I mean, how much does that actually get you? Why did you go through all that effort? I don't know. Maybe I'm just salty. Maybe I'm just bad. I don't know. But it doesn't feel good to like grind on something for months just to get like a pretty stat stick. And in my opinion, it would be a lot more satisfying if some of the stuff that you are working for, like, let's say you do an ultimate, and when you do that ultimate as a ninja, you get the equivalent of the Yagyu Dark Blade, which is a weapon I have in Final Fantasy 11. That weapon is cool as shit. It gives me Utsusemi on everybody in my entire party, which makes them unhittable for like 3 to 5 hits. That's super cool. Why can't we have super cool stuff in 14 like that? I know balancing, it won't be fair, but I don't care. It's an MMO. Right. It's not like we're killing each other in the open world. Who cares about balance?
Yeah, and that's usually where I end up always kind of falling on. It's like, okay, yeah, that's the purpose. Like, hey, you can go find these things to go and grind for, giving people, a sense of also satisfaction in terms of that. I'm sure that satisfaction exists, like getting in an ultimate weapon, for example, but that ends up being like fewer and far between. It's a much smaller percentage of the community. Do want to say thanks to Wes, Real Kitty Hawk, for his tier 3 support with a like unbelievable 70 months of support here on Twitch. So thank you so much for that. And also, hello, PMS Jordan. Glad to see you here. All that being said, I want to toss to Mugen because we've covered a lot in here. I'd like to get your thoughts. You came into Final Fantasy 14. You said that I was kind of one of the main content creators that you would watch. Where do you fall right now? What does Final Fantasy need to do to win the hearts and minds of players back, if at all possible?
I want to be completely honest with you guys. Like I said, I haven't played Final Fantasy 14 in quite some time. Like I started when Realm Reborn first started, played through that with my brothers, then took a break. Like I said, MMOs requires a lot of dedication and time, especially back in my 11 days, man. That's all I had was just time and stuff. So it's kind of hard to like really jump into it. So about a year and a half ago, I finally completed Heaven's Wars with my brothers and stuff. And then I stopped again. And then I decided, so you know what? I got that itch for 14, especially at watching your content and stuff like that. And now I'm hearing all this bad news that people are walking away from the game and everything, especially after seeing that boom when people were making an exodus from WoW and moving over. I was like, okay, I think it's about time for me to go back. But now I'm hearing this bad news. I'm like, should I invest my time into this? So right now I'm just playing in the background to see, how this is all going to play out and everything. But in my personal opinion, I'm going to ask you guys, do you think it's about time just to move on from 14 and start the next MMO, like Final Fantasy 18 or something like that? Like, you think that's what they should do instead of just, because I mean, the expansion pack that ended the arc that they had
Endwalker, yeah,
Endwalker. I think
that was my natural exit. Like I was interviewed before the expansion dropped, and they were like, "What are you going to do? The game's so popular." I was like, honestly, like there's a real good chance that I'm just going to step away from the game. Like it's going to feel complete, and I was like, the game is going to, no matter what, struggle when it goes into the next kind of expansion arc because you're kind of building, but they also structured it so that it isn't a new starting point. It literally is built on top of this giant tower. So I'm gonna let these guys answer because I have my answer to your question, Mugen. But let's go to Cole. What's your answer to Mugen's question?
My thoughts are like especially an MMORPG, especially if you're going head to head with a game with a long story like World of Warcraft, I think it would be at this point monumentally challenging to have such a breadth and depth of content that even Final Fantasy 14, as much as we can complain about a content drought, we have years upon years of content, and they have done some major revamps and updates to long legacy systems. Like pet responsiveness was one thing that people used to complain about with like Summoner, for instance. But in Endwalker, they massively revamped it. Like Scholar's the main class that I play, which is like the only pet class that still exists, if I'm honest. But I've never had any issue, even in the newest Ultimate Raid, Futures Rerun, very specific pet commands, much more responsive. Ever since that Endwalker revamp, they've done a lot of like graphics updates too. And so I think that Final Fantasy 14, as long as Square Enix determines that it's worth the cost, I think that it absolutely has a lot of potential. Even if we look at the financial report that they released, a Square Enix financial report from a month ago, like Final Fantasy 14 is the golden goose. It is just monumental amount of revenue, monumental amount of collaborations. Even in the background, I see Magic the Gathering collab. Like 14 is not a failure by any means. It has so much potential, but I think that the main thing is, especially with when they said that they cut specifically, not that I want to get too deep with it, but they said that they cut Forge Tower normal mode, which would be more casual player content, due to cost. So we only got the higher tier, more difficult version of it. I think that was a jarring statement. So it's just like, okay, this is your golden goose in terms of revenue. It's really up to Square Enix. Do they want it to be the thing? Because I see all the potential in the world, like the collaborations, the community, the fan base, the reception. That's really as far as I see it. Because we do need more content, in my opinion. More grippy mid-core, like, which mid-core is an ambiguous term. So it's like just scalable content. Like I always cite World of Warcraft's Mythic Plus dungeon system, which some people love it, some people hate it. But what I really like about that is you determine how much time you want to put in and the difficulty. And if you only make it to plus 7 key, okay, you make it to plus 7 key. But then you could have like the really hardcore Twitch streamers go to like a plus 25 key or something absurd. And for them, that's even more content for them to do. So unfortunately, I suppose that's a long-winded answer. I think it more depends on Square Enix. The potential's absolutely there.
Do you think that because Yoshi P talked about that they've lost the trust and they're gonna have to work to get the player trust back? Do you think the trust is lost? That seems like a powerful
For a
statement.
lot
The
of
last
people.
time I heard him talk about that was from 1.0 to 2.0.
Yeah, that stood out to me too, because I remember him saying that in the live letter. And part of me wanted to say, oh, it's just in terms of how many server maintenances we've had lately, which to me is like server maintenance happens. Like it doesn't happen that much in 14, and it wasn't a big issue. But like if what he was truly meaning was a wider content thing, that could be revolutionary. But because I think it's very interesting, and again, I don't want to say this because it sounds like putting words in someone's mouth, so I'm not trying to, but I've talked to a lot of friends about it. And why would someone that is such a high level executive in a company with so much power, with so many eyes on them, who knows exactly what a social event that live letter was, talk about cost and trust in the same thing? I don't want to say it's a cry for help of some sort, but that's what a lot of people were talking to me about. It's just like someone at that level, someone with that much brain capacity doesn't really make a mistake. And so it stood out, I suppose.
Scrag, Mugen's question to you: should they make another Final Fantasy MMO to follow this one?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that since Walker was announced. Yoshi P has said before he always wanted to make his own game from start to finish, and I think they should let him do that. That's kind of my opinion, because I think what he's done with 14 is great. It's amazing. It's awesome. He saved it, even though I kind of liked 1.0, which is not a popular opinion, but he saved it, and I think that they should give him a shot at making what he wants to make.
Yeah, I agree. The one of the things, especially when I look at the issues that people bring up, I always feel like it's a friction between like the story-driven elements and the MMO kind of aspects that what people think of. And that's where when we talk about like gearing with purpose, like the replayability, the mid-core content, in that regards, especially like when you think about the 4-man versus like, maybe a 5-man or 6. When you look at Final Fantasy 11, for example, I fall into the category that it's like this game's over 15 years old. I think if they were going to do it, and Yoshi P's talked about how much of a nightmare it would be to make another like and try to get the 14 community to migrate into the new MMO, because there could be a real risk in which that the people you thought they were going to come along, that's what they thought when with 11, they thought all the 11 players would go into 14 and then they could shut down 11. Turns out 11's still rocking and rolling. In fact, I'm resubbing to Final Fantasy 11 this weekend because I really love the game and I want that game to succeed. I'd love to see them either make a brand new Final Fantasy MMO that's set like with the latest technology, with that full design decision, with that full long-term planning, not having to be like remade in 18 months and and then have to spend so much time working on some of these smaller things like, hey, multiple dies on your gear, which they finally brought in with Dawn Trail. That is in and of itself a sign of just the amount of work that they're having to do behind the scenes that don't necessarily players feel that kind of payoff. I've seen even people frustrated about the graphical overhaul. I know when stepping in and playing the game, I did not notice it. Meaning that, I know that when they showed side-by-side comparisons, you could easily see the difference. And I was like, yes, the new graphical interface looks better. But I literally am playing it and it's just water under the bridge. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess that means, I don't know if that had the payoff that a lot of people were hoping for. That's kind of where I fall. I'd love to see something about either a brand new MMO for like a whole new generation. Timeline wise, guys, I don't think that'd be out until sometime after 2030 if they were starting now. but the question ends up being also, I think y'all have all brought it and touched on it. Yoshi P, he might be working, like we know he's working on so many things. Even the CEO says that they've got Yoshi P working on so many different things. Like, is it a matter that they've literally just made this man so busy that some of these things that are plaguing the game now are just because he has not been able to kind of helm the game, because he is the producer and the director, where he was just like the producer on 16, for example. Like, what's the plan there? What do y'all think?
I just think they need more competent people that's like Yoshi P. It's like they're just putting everything on this man because he did they bring Final Fantasy 14 back from the dead. So I understand, that he's like the Kevin Feige now and everything. So they want to just put everything on him. But I just think they need, better leadership, more people that can, alleviate some of that stress and stuff. So I think he is being overworked, and I think it's probably finally showing from the results of what people were, complaining about, in 14. So I think that's my personal opinion.
What do you think, Cole?
I correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he step down from the board of directors like 3 or 4 months ago?
He did, and I think that's maybe a positive move. I didn't know really how to feel about that, but go continue.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, because it's just like I don't know how much, like, obviously I think that he has a lot of sway still, regardless if he has that position or not. But it's like I part of me wonders if he stepped down because he saw things, and obviously he would know months ago what was coming down the pipeline before we would have our hands on it. But maybe he saw things and he was just like, okay, I need to put this down and I need to focus on actually getting our golden goose up, because it's like if the golden goose isn't fed, like, that's a way bigger disaster. Like that financial report, like it was pretty clear, if I'm honest. God, how to even segue from that. But I think that, yeah, he's overloaded. I think too many people are putting too many expectations on him. And I mean, there's only so much that one human being can do. It's just like you have him working on 16, you have him working on 14, you have the creative unit. I think that he's also working on the Tactics remake, which I'm personally excited for that game too. And then it's just like there could be 17 in the background and who knows what else. And there's only so much that one person can do. And so it's I think that he's in an unfair position where he's getting a whole lot of flack for things that I don't think that he could reasonably be expected to be responsible for, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair statement. Because it's like just seeing how much they put on him, like Wes and you guys are confirmed, like he's in charge of the Final Fantasy Tactics, that remake, which honestly I'm really excited for. I think that's going to be, and I want to try and encourage everybody to play. In fact, we'll give away copies of that game if that's what it takes to get more people Tactics, because it's not just with the Tactics, it's also with Advanced and Advanced 2. Like those are some other great Final Fantasy Tactics games that are just like kind of lost to time. And the hope would be, especially as we talked about like turn-based action combat at the start of this podcast, hope would be is like maybe if Tactics can find a whole new audience, we can get some more there could be a Final Fantasy Tactics 2, like let's let them, kind of really build these things that a lot of people want. Mugen, Yoshi P, what's your vibe on him right now?
I think he's great, man. Like I said before, like I always wanted to see what he could do. I think 16, in my personal opinion, it did not scratch that itch, or it wasn't something that I really expected from Yoshi P, because I remember when they asked him like if he was in charge of a Final Fantasy, how would his Final Fantasy would be, and I was like, I'm all up for a Final Fantasy from Yoshi P, but 16 didn't end up being the type of Final Fantasy game that I wanted from this guy and everything. But I would love to still see him take another stab at it and stuff. But as I said before, like the amount of pressure that this man had, I can see this guy experiencing burnout or creativity burnout and stuff like that. I think if you allow this man, give him some breathing room, or give him a partner, or give him a team that's just as capable and competent, so he can, delegate some of that, so he can actually focus on where he really wants to work on. I think he can really put out some bangers if he has that breathing space, So,
Craig, you got any thoughts on this subject?
I don't think it's good to put too much stuff on one person. That's a pretty simple take, I know, but like people who are like really good at one thing, just like let them do the one thing and like make you a bunch of money, and then go find other people to make you more money other ways,
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I see it. I don't know. I feel like I've never blamed him directly for anything really since A Realm Reborn, because I know like he's doing the best with what he's got.
Mm-hmm.
And except for Blitzball. That's totally his fault.
That is his fault. He talked about it openly, I think, too much. And then it's like, all right. And now it's been 6 years and we're like, all right, I'm giving up hope.
And that's not a meme. I actually want Blitzball.
Oh no, I would love to see Blitzball come back. All right, I've got good news for everybody here. Our budget is unlimited. We can come up with any ideas of what we want to see them invest into Final Fantasy 14 to make the game, what we would hope it would be. Obviously, when it's all said and done, these are just random thoughts. Anything that I suggest, I want to let people know, are absolutely difficult to do. But first, I want to focus in on with this unlimited budget that we all have at our in this imaginary hypothetical. Let's focus in on jobs, job identity, and 8.0. 8.0 is the next expansion. I'm assuming that there's going to be a fan fest sometime this year that's going to start highlighting and breaking down that aspect. 8.0, new jobs. 1, 2, none. What do? You have no limitations. You can dream up the wildest dreams. And I want to start with Cole to see if he's got any expectations, because I think even in your video, and correct me if either was your video or your post, you were talking about 8.0 is going to be some kind of, job identity balancing patch. So they communicated that to you guys at the, the media tour, right? What is 8.0 job identity, new jobs, or run wild, man?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is going to be obviously super duper biased, but so Summoner was reworked in Endwalker to not be a pet job. We don't have a pet job. I think one of the most important things is to get like a fully fledged pet job in here. I know Beastmaster's a thing, but it's a limited job. You know that you can't take that into any current content, not even current open world maps. You'll just get destroyed or hunt trains or that. So I really think that Beastmaster's great, but I think that what we need is a fully fledged pet job for that. I also think that damage over time playstyles should be brought back, because like these are staples in many other MMORPGs. I think you'd be hard pressed to not find a current MMORPG without like pets or dots. Like World of Warcraft has a bunch. Guild Wars 2 has. They have at least Mechanist, Necromancer, and oh my god, my brain just shut off. I'm trying to juggle too many thoughts, but like it's just very weird that 14 scrapped that. I think another thing would be healer homogenization really needs to be broken up. I think that there needs to be a more clear difference between the healers. I think the Barrier healer, Sage, and Scholar, while they do have some differences for sure, they're also very, very similar. But I think more than even that is that healer rotations, like the damage rotation, I would put that in quotes if I could, is really spamming one button across all the healers. And I think that would be fine if it was on one healer, like White Mage. Like White Mage was classically the more friendly healer.
Exactly. So it's like, hey, this is what you have, and then the other one, 100%. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I don't want to like lose accessibility, but it's just like I look at Scholar, and Scholar, do I think we should go back to the days of A Realm Reborn with Cleric Stance? God, no. But it's just like I think Stormblood struck a nice middle ground where it wasn't just broil spam, because it's like, in terms of healer design in Savage and Ultimates, okay, I really do enjoy that. But if you even look at Occult Crescent, or dare I say not Eureka Orthos, the new one, I think it's like Pilgrim's Passageway or whatever it's called. Like, I don't want to do that content because it is so painful, because I literally am pressing one button over and over again. So that's another thing that I totally scrap. And then with any new expansion, I think it was even Yoshi P himself that said this, they need to have a new DPS just because that's what gets people hyped. So I think that would go back to the pet. In terms of tanks, I'm not a big tank player, but so I would defer to Xenosis on a lot of this. But I think that tanks, a lot of them play a lot of very samey, like Dark Knight and Warrior, very, very samey. So I'd probably address it like that. I think that overall we need to also look at the 2-minute meta, which if I didn't mention that, people would be like, why didn't he mention that? I think that everything just slots together a little bit too perfectly, and it leads to things just being really stripped down and homogenized. It's like even between, like, say, the melee DPS, it's just like... So I think just breaking up things, taking more risks. I think Occult Crescent Phantom Jobs is a great example of that. Where's the risks? Where's the experimentation? It's like, give us some flair. Keep some easy jobs, but give us something.
Mugen, unlimited budget. What do you do?
Bro, oh man, this is kind of tough because, like I said, I haven't really caught up on it, and plus, it has a lot of jobs variety for me since I'm way back, in the past when it comes to expansions and stuff like that. I'm a tank guy, I always been tank, love tank. It's one hell of a responsibility and everything, but I don't know. I like to see them, I guess pull some jobs from Final Fantasy Tactics and see how they can mesh, some of the jobs into Final Fantasy 14. I just think that would be pretty cool. But I really don't really have any ideas or suggestions because I haven't really played it as much as you guys. So I really wouldn't know what to say or what I really would want. Yeah.
Fair. Is there a specific job that, like, from your time with Final Fantasy, you brought up tactics, for example, that you would love to see them introduce in 8.0? That would get you to be like, oh, I'm back. Like
yeah. But let me see. But I mean, there's different interpretation because I mean, Knight, you got Paladin, so I like to see what they do with like Calculator if they put something like that in Final Fantasy 14.
I think they'd have to go with a limited job if they were going to do something like Calculator. Yeah. Maybe they could do that. They could probably come up with some interpretation of it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about it for me. Yeah.
Scrag, do you got any thoughts? Unlimited budget, ready to rock and roll 8.0?
Specifically for jobs?
Yeah, jobs, job identity, like the whole that I kind of package that also kind of with battle system, because that's all like in my mind interrelated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first off, Viper was a cop out. Give me a real Corsair, please. And then other than that, like stance dancing on Warrior was like really fun. I don't know why they took it away. Probably for balancing, probably accessibility and
a lot of the things that people are like, I can understand it, and just like we've seen, like there is a argument for accessibility for players, right? There is you can go too far.
Yeah, I think that's what the problem is in general. We in this age of accessibility because the fighting game community, because I play fighting games too, so I'm from that community as well. And I think that's the problem that we're going through with the current generations of fighting games, this accessibility thing. And what it does is just strips all of the nuance or all of the deep gameplay mechanics just to try to get newer players in to be able to understand these mechanics. But the thing is, once these newer players come in, the accessibility options are there, but then those players still don't stick around. So now the core audience who actually put the time in, they're the ones who actually like suffer for it. So I just think we just need a balance when it comes to accessibility, because if you're going too far, then it gets rid of all of the deep mechanics and what you love about that particular game. So yeah, I think that definitely needs to be addressed all across the board, no matter what kind of genre or game that people are invested in.
Yeah, I feel like there should be at least one or two classes in each role that are just insanely hard to play. Like Monk an expansion or two ago, I would have never even thought about trying because it's just like, oh my god, like what is even happening? But like to your fighting game example, I still play XX AC plus R because it's the best one, right? Like Strive is bad in my opinion because it's too easy. Street Fighter 6 feels like a swamp. Like the inputs are so slow. Like what do you mean? Like I'm supposed to slow down? I can't do my freaking Hadokens because I'm used to just like playing as Soul or whatever and just being like just yanking that stick around, just like that, But I don't know. I feel like at least one or two jobs that are like actually hard to play and you get rewarded for playing them correctly would be cool. Like for example, Samurai is already a selfish class. Let's just turn it into a double selfish class that the person playing it can't even focus on anything else because the inputs are so hard. Let's do that. That'd be like really cool.
Yeah, man. That's what I think the problem is like once you start throwing accessibility, that reward system of actually nailing down, the mechanics and stuff like that just goes out the window, and then everything feels samey. Is that no matter what, that's what's been going on, especially with fighting games. Like no matter what character I pick, they feel somewhat the same because of this accessibility mechanics that they have in there. And now everything's like a flow chart. Like you just follow this flow chart. You don't break away from it. There's no freedom of expression and everything like that. So I definitely can see how that would also impact MMORPGs when it comes to different classes and everything, where everything feels samey and everything. You learn one thing, you can take that same knowledge and go on to the other job and stuff like that. So I definitely understand that.
Yeah, I just pulled out something to illustrate my point. So old fighting games, you used to have to do like do an ultimate ability, right? Like you'd be like, right now it's just that's it. Now just do double quarter circle forward and press a button, and there's your ultimate. Super easy. Yeah. Even easier than that, if you play on modern, you want to do your ultimate. There you go. That's your ultimate. That's so dumb. It requires no skill, and it just turns it into a like this is the most efficient thing. Whereas back in like XXACR, I'd be like jerking this thing all over the place, playing as Milia, outplaying you because I'm better, right?
Yeah.
I don't think people understand how important that is.
But the Persona 4 fighting game started that with the auto combo where you just press one button, they can do a whole combo string. And I remember when I went to the anime convention in the gaming room, and it was only released in Japan first. The US release of the Persona 4 fighter at the time didn't come out yet in the States. So I'm at the anime convention. They actually had the Japanese version. So this guy is dominating everybody. I said, yo, this dude combos is sick. So when it was my turn to get on there and actually try it out for the first time. I said, wait a minute, this guy wasn't doing nothing special. He was just tapping one button because of it was the accessibility thing that's built into the system where you just tap one button, they do a full combo string into a super. And then Grand Blue Fantasy fighting game, because they're trying to grab the Grand Blue RPG fans into the fighting games. Then they introduce the easy mechanics where you don't like if you can choose whether you want to do the full inputs, which it would like speed up your cooldowns, or you can just press a simple tap left in the button or tap down in the button, and you're able to easily get the moves out. But then when Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising came out, they eliminated that. So they're all the same. So no matter if I push easy inputs or difficult inputs, I get the same results. So a lot of people say, screw the hard inputs. I'm just going to just use and spam the easy inputs. So yeah, it's accessibility, man. I can go all day about that.
Yeah, not to get too far off track, but yeah.
And I went to a Final Fantasy 14 podcast and a fighting podcast, bro. Now I feel you guys on that, and especially growing up with in the fighting game scene, just absolutely loving it. Soul Calibur for me was always something that I go back to, and now with the Switch 2, I believe they've added Soul Calibur 2 for the GameCube in there, so I'm gonna have to go maybe play some of that this weekend. I do want to kind of talk about what Chemistral is bringing up in chat, because this is my unlimited budget, right? I think that 8.0 should not introduce a single new job. I think, I think they should overhaul the entire job system and job identity to really kind of focus in on some like bringing in that. When we talk about some of these things, like as Cole brought up, and he's like, mid-core is this kind of, anonymous kind of term. Like when people hear it, they interpret it differently. What I would like to see, because I think one of the things that makes the mid-core actually like fun and interesting to invest, is that you as the player can do various different things. And so every time they introduce these kind of systems, like if you look at Eureka, you look at Baja, you look at I believe it's Gold Crescent. That is essentially what this new system is with the phantom jobs, etc. Like that's what I want the whole game to be. Like I love these different systems. I love the critical engagements, and I like how all that works within an open world. I think if they decided to really kind of invest in this game, they should bring back the sub-job system. To do that, though, would require them to redesign the entire job.
They don't have the sub-job? Like I said, I haven't played in a while. They don't have the sub-jobs?
No, they do not have sub-jobs. They used to have with that where you kind of had some classes that you could pick from. They got rid of that, and you have kind of shared rolled abilities. So they got rid of but that in and of itself wasn't even fully fleshed out. They cut it because like it was just complicated, and it ended up just giving players the ability to pick wrong choices more than, and then kind of being stuck with those wrong choices somewhat for at least a little while. What I'd like to see is like when you look at the investment they made in PvP, the jobs in the new PvP feel like they have an identity. The jobs in PvE, Cole talked about it, they feel very homogenized. They all can do different things. Chemistral earlier in this podcast brought up the fact that like range DPS the advantage was that you were ranged. Now everybody is just able to move around no matter what. So there isn't like a real risk in being, maybe melee anymore because you can get in and out so quickly. And as they continue to expand on these skills, I think it's a double-edged sword. The other thing in pairing with that is the level syncing system. It made sense at level 50. It worked, in level 60. And as it continued to climb up, now at a level 100, you hit level cap, and then the majority of the content you run, especially at the expansion 1. At the 0.0, the 0.1, 0.2, everything is usually less than level cap. You have some things you can do at that level cap, which really kind of has that full job identity there, and then you go into level sync content and you lose all of that, and it goes away, and then you don't have access. And I find that personally, I think that system in conjunction with let's rethink about how these jobs work. Let's really kind of spend the time that we would on designing new jobs that in this case would feel only really good at level cap, or at least how it starts, but then all the level sync stuff would end up feeling pretty weak. Because Scrag, you brought up Viper was at level cap feels great. If you're running that sub 70, you're like, this is kind of boring. I'm not really enjoying this job. And so I like that. And then Chemistry also kind of follow this up with letting the machinist that can actually assist healers with Insunas as a long cooldown res to help prevent a wipe. I think if they brought in the sub job system, you, the player, would have a little bit more control. And then that ties into so many things. And that's why, for me, my vote ends up usually always going to, they should probably just make a new MMO at some point in the future. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to hey, we're shutting down 14. They don't actually have to. They could keep that on what people have defined as managed decline right now, and invest in a new MMO for a new era, for a new generation with the Final Fantasy branding. I think that is where they could do these kind of things, where they could bring back the sub job system for the MMO. They could work on the open world so that you have these critical engagements and you have a vibrant open world that isn't instanced off into its own server. What do you guys think?
I agree. The sub job system, that was the best part of Final Fantasy 11. It had brought so much variety, and your sub job really mattered, especially when you added people in your party in Final Fantasy 11. You couldn't just put any type of combination together. I remember when I first played Final Fantasy 11, somebody came to our party. He was a warrior white mage, and they're this is the earlier on. I'm like, bro. You can't be a warrior white mage, dude.
Just go play Paladin, dude.
Yeah, just take that off, But subclass, I think that was the best part of it, because once you got your main job, you had to go back, you had to level up, wherever your subclass was in order to bring them both together and everything. It's just kind of surprising that 14, didn't have that. I think that was the best aspect of it. But when it came to 14 too, even when it came to leveling up, 14 didn't feel for me, leveling up your character didn't feel as rewarding as Final Fantasy 11. Final Fantasy 11 was just a grind, and you really felt like you earned leveling up in Final Fantasy 11 because of how difficult it was just to bring a party together, get the right setup, find the best camping spot and everything, and then just constantly chaining your linking your experience points and stuff. I love those aspects of Final Fantasy 11, and now 14 is more streamlined and stuff. I think that's another reason why it haven't really pulled me in compared to what 11 had done for me.
I think 11 actually makes the most sense to remaster or remake that, as opposed to necessarily we're going to make 18 and it's a brand new MMO. Well, I think that could be very curious if they were we're going to invest, because no matter what, if they did master whatever Final Fantasy 11, there would be some compromises that the community would have to be okay with. Therefore, I say, yeah, you can keep classic Final Fantasy 11 up as an option for those who want to play it, just like they're doing with Tactics. Tactics is having the original version included in the remaster, and the remaster has some changes, right? So, but I think from just a mathematical and job and kind of identity design, 11 it's done so much, but you would have to bring that to a modern audience in the sense that you would have to bring that back to consoles. You'd have to bring in features, because you'd get rid of play online, do all these things. There'd be a lot of I think strength in that, because you would have you would have players who like went to 14 thinking it was going to be the next 11 and then going like, oh, this is more like World of Warcraft. And then they ended up returning to 11. You have that. What I've said is that they need to have a hybrid approach with that. They did, tried to do another sandbox, make it a sand park, bring in theme park aspects so that players know, hey, I need to go do this, this, and this, and I'm going to get my reward. But then there's this huge, vibrant, open world and economy that keeps players engaged, week over week, month over month. And I think 11 ends up making the most logistical sense in doing that because you have people who would be excited about it. You'd have the returning players who played it originally, and then you would open it up so that new players don't have to jump. Like people say the hardest boss in Final Fantasy 11 is just installing and subscribing to it.
It is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people go to like private servers, and then there's always kinds of risk and rewards there. It's like imagine what they could do, with that investment. And I think that would be really, really good. We're coming up to the kind of our hour. For those of you who are joining us, thank you so much for being here. We have quite a crew here today. This has been a lot of fun to talk about it. But I want to go around because we've been ending our shows with what are we playing? What are we playing? So, Scrag, what are you playing right now?
I've been playing Final Fantasy 11, and I've also been playing some 14. Not really, though. I'm just mainly setting up my UI again. That's been a very slow process. But just mainly 11 and a little bit of, I think I played like maybe 10 minutes of Stellar Blade this week. So it's in there.
Nice. Mugen, what are you playing?
Oh, hey, thanks. I just finished Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and I'll be preparing like a little review video for it. So my next game I'll be hopping on or returning to and to finish is Stellar Blade. That's something that I had to get around to finishing because I had put that down after a while and everything. So now I'm just catching up on my backlog, and plus I didn't get a chance to open my Nintendo Switch 2 yet. I had got it during launch and never opened it yet. So I'll be trying to sink and invest some time into my Nintendo Switch 2 when I get around to it, especially now that my backlog will also experience a performance boost with the Nintendo Switch 2, especially after I found out that the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 RPG on the Switch 1 is also got a performance boost as well. So I already beat the game, but I'm going back to it now to do a second playthrough and get the DLC for it as well.
You already own it too, so you can just pop that right in.
Pop it right in.
Let's go.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Cole, what are you playing, dude?
Actually, a lot of World of Warcraft lately, which I don't know if that ties into what we've been talking about.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is the Final Fantasy are people making WoW videos? Welcome 14 refugees. You know, like it's like have we gone full circle? Yeah.
Oh, I'd laugh. Oh my god, it kind of feels like that because some people are like telling me, "Oh my god, 14's in its Warlords of Draenor moment." I'm like, "Oh my god," but I've been doing that. Guild Wars 2, Warframe, and that's probably my main thing alongside 14. I might do a little bit more 14. I might start progging Top or DSR 2 Ultimate Raids here, but a lot of World of Warcraft. Really enjoying Warlock and its 3 different specs and Beastmaster Hunter, things that I really wish 14 would offer. So that's why I said what I said before. It's like, give me pets, but a lot of that these past few days.
That's awesome. That's awesome. For me, still just loving No Rest for the Wicked. They just had a big update this week, and I'm going to spend some time with it the weekend. Also, I'm really enjoying Super Mario RPG. Returning to that game, especially on my Switch 2, is great. Now, I've shared a lot. Like, my Switch 2 experience has been nothing but awful. It's just like one problem after another. I've talked to their support team multiple times, and now I actually am sending back because I ended up getting a second Switch, what I called the family Switch, because I was like, y'all ain't touching mine. This is Dad's Switch. This is the family Switch. You guys can play these games and we can play them together. And it doesn't actually plug into the dock right out the gate. Like it doesn't connect to the dock. You can plug it in and charge it from the bottom, but it looks like there's some kind of metal. Anyway, the nice thing is support's taking care of it. I'm going to ship that off to them today to get repaired, but it's still like, man, I tell you, I know those people out there that are really salty at Nintendo right now are just like, yeah, we're glad Ginger's having a problem. So many different Nintendo problems this generation, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna continue playing some that, and hopefully get step back into some Tears of the Kingdom a little bit. Now that we finally have completed our big home renovation project we've been working on, saving up for 5 years, and then we've been out of the house for a month. So I'm now recording in my new office, and I gotta put things up on the walls and do so much more stuff like that. So it's gonna be a fun weekend regardless. But that's it, guys. That's the roundtable. All of these guys' links are in the description of this video. Go and give them a follow and check out the other content that they're making, and then hopefully you'll tune back in next Friday, where we'll talk about the latest gaming news and what's going on in gaming with the roundtable crew. And outside of that, one of the thoughts that, for anybody who's watching this as a VOD, would love to hear some thoughts and feedback. If you made it all the way this far in the podcast, thinking about making like maybe a $1 membership option here on the channel in and of itself, just to support the cost of running the podcast. And I think there's a $5 kind of tier that's just on from back when this was my Blue Protocol channel. But I'm thinking about opening that up just to see if that ends up being of value to anybody. So if you're watching this as a VOD, sound off in the comments whether you'd like that option or if it wouldn't make a difference to you. I'm just gathering some feedback as I kind of mulling over some ideas as we continue to build out this rebranded podcast for a new year, new decade. All that being said, thanks everybody so much for tuning in. Thanks to my roundtable for joining me, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the next thing that we do.